Hey there! Welcome back to the channel. If you're like me and love having plants around but don't exactly live in a sun-drenched greenhouse, don't worry. Today, I've got you covered. We're diving into 12 of the best indoor flowering plants that don't need tons of sunlight to thrive. Yep, these beauties bloom even in low light, and some of them might surprise you. So whether you've got a shady apartment, a cozy office space, or just want to brighten up a darker corner with some floral color, these plants are going to be your new best friends. Let's get into either are my top 12 low-light flowering plants to liven up your space, even when the sun's playing hard to get. Alright, first up, Dianthus. You've probably seen these guys in outdoor gardens, right? But guess what? They actually do pretty great indoors too. I've got one sitting on my kitchen counter, and it still puts out those sweet little blooms with barely any direct sun. They like bright, indirect light, but they won't complain too much if the lighting's kinda meh. Just make sure the pot drains well. Dianthus hates soggy roots. And yeah, they do give off this subtle clove-like smell that's actually kinda relaxing. I usually water mine when the top inch of soil feels dry. Don't overdo it, they're tougher than they look. What I love most? That pop of pink, red, or white adds just enough color to brighten up a room without going full jungle. So if you're looking for something easy that still gives you flowers, Dianthus is a pretty solid start. Low drama, nice payoff. Next up, Geranium. Now I know what you're thinking. Aren't these usually outdoor plants? Yeah, totally. But hear me, out some types actually do really well inside too, especially the scented ones. I've got a zonal geranium near my north-facing window, and it still throws out blooms like it's showing off. They do prefer a little more light than full shade plants, but they'll still hang in there in bright, indirect spots. And man, those leaves give them a little rub, and you get that spicy, lemony scent that just makes the room feel fresh. I usually let the soil dry out between waterings, 'cause overwatering's the quickest way to mess these up. They're super easy to deadhead too. Just pinch off the faded flowers and boom, more blooms. Honestly, if you want a plant that kind of feels like summer all year round, geranium's your go-to. Low maintenance, great color, and that smell, total bonus. Alright, let's talk about marigolds. Yeah, I know, most folks think of them as garden plants, but you can actually grow these guys indoors without much hassle. I've got a little pot of them sitting by my entryway, and even with just a bit of light coming through, they still put on a pretty good show. They're surprisingly adaptable. Give them a bright window, and they'll reward you with those bold yellow and orange blooms that just scream good vibes. I water mine when the soil's dry, about an inch down, and they don't seem too fussy. Plus, they've got this kind of earthy scent that keeps things feeling fresh, and weirdly, bugs seem to hate it, which is a win indoors. If they start getting leggy, just pinch them back a bit and they'll fill right out. Honestly, marigolds are one of those underrated plants that just do their thing without a ton of effort. Great for beginners, great for color, and they're tough little guys. Oakleaf Hydrangea might not be the first plant you think of for indoor blooms, but man, it can totally work if you give it the right spot. I've got one in a big pot near my sliding glass door where it gets a bit of filtered light, and it's doing way better than I expected. The flowers come in these cone-shaped clusters wide at first. Then they fade into this soft pink or brown that honestly still looks great. The leaves are a whole other story though. Huge, kind of leathery, and they turn this deep, reddish purple in the fall even indoors, which is super cool. I keep the soil moist but not soggy, and it seems pretty happy as long as I don't let it dry out completely. It's not a tiny plant, so you'll need a little space, but if you want something that gives you flowers and killer foliage, Oakleaf Hydrangea brings it. It's kind of like having a little piece of the woods inside your home, without the bugs and dirt. Roman chamomile is one of those plants that's easy to overlook, but once you've got it, you wonder why you didn't try it sooner. I've got mine in a little clay pot on a bookshelf near a window, and it's been super chill. The flowers look like tiny daisies' white petals, yellow center sand. They've got this light, apple-like scent that honestly makes the whole room feel calm. It doesn't need full sun blasting on it all day either. Just some indirect light and it'll keep doing its thing. I water it when the top inch of soil feels dry. Nothing complicated. What's cool is you can snip the flowers and use them for tea if you're into that. But even if you're not, they're just nice to look at. It's kind of like having a built-in air freshener that also flowers. And if it starts getting leggy, just trim it back. It bounces back pretty fast. It's mellow, it's pretty, and it's super beginner-friendly. Daylilies indoors? Yeah, sounds a little out there. But hear me, out it totally works if you've got a bit of light and the right setup. I've been growing one in a deep container by my back door, and it still puts out those bright, bold flowers like it's trying to win a prize. Each bloom only lasts a day, hence the name, but they keep coming back if the plant's happy. What's wild is how low maintenance they are, especially for how dramatic the flowers look. I just let the soil dry a bit between waterings. Nothing fancy. They don't mind a little neglect, which is great if you forget a watering or two. The leaves are these long, arching blades that give off kind of a tropical vibe, even when it's freezing outside. If you've got a spot with decent indirect light and a pot deep enough for the roots, give daylilies a shot indoors. They're like little fireworks in a pot, and you don't even need a garden to enjoy them. Verbena is one of those plants that just keeps giving, even indoors. I've got a small pot of it on a side table by the window, and man, those clusters of purple flowers pop like crazy against the greenery. What I love is how it doesn't need a ton of direct sun, just a nice bright spot, and it keeps blooming for weeks. It's got this kind of wildflower energy, but it doesn't take over your space. I water it when the top of the soil starts to feel dry, and it really doesn't ask for much more than that. The stems are a bit delicate, so I try not to bump it too much when I'm cleaning around it. And if you deadhead the old flowers, it just encourages more to grow, which is always a win. It brings this relaxed, summery vibe to the room, even if it's raining outside. Honestly, if you want a low-fuss bloomer with a splash of color, Verbena's a solid pick. Scaevola is one of those plants that most people walk right past at the garden center. But once you try it indoors, you get why it's such a hidden gem. I've got mine in a hanging basket near a window that doesn't get a ton of sun, and it's still blooming like it's summer every day. The flowers are these funky little fan shapes, almost like half a daisy end. They come in soft purples, blues, or whites. Super chill plant. Doesn't need babying at all. I water it when the top of the soil feels dry, and as long as the pot drains well, it's happy. What's cool is it kind of cascades over the edge, so it adds a nice draping look to your space. It's not too thirsty, and it doesn't drop a bunch of leaves or petals everywhere, which I appreciate. If you deadhead once in a while, you'll keep getting fresh blooms. Honestly, Scaevola's like that friend who's always in a good mood, low-key, good-looking, and easy to be around. Petunias indoors? Yeah, I was a little skeptical too at first, but trust me, they can totally thrive inside if you give them just a little love. I've got a bright magenta one sitting in a pot by the window in my kitchen, and it's always got something blooming. They're usually thought of as outdoor plants, but with enough indirect light and decent airflow, they don't mind being indoors at all. The trick is to give them a little pinch back now and then to keep them bushy and full. I water mine when the top of the soil gets dry, and it seems happy enough with that rhythm. The flowers are big, bold, and kind of velvety looking, so they really stand out in a room. Sometimes they'll drop a few petals here and there, but nothing too messy. And man, the color variety, if you like options, petunias have them. They're basically the overachievers of the flower world, and having one indoors just brings a little more color to your day without needing a full-on garden. Coreopsis is one of those plants that just puts you in a good mood, like it's basically sunshine in a pot. I've got a little yellow one on my desk, and even on cloudy days, it still feels bright in here. The flowers are these daisy-like blooms that come out in waves, and they're super cheerful without being too in your face. What's cool is it doesn't need direct sun blasting on it all day, just a bright spot with some light, and it'll do its thing. I water it when the top inch of soil feels dry, and it doesn't get too fussy about it. If you deadhead the old blooms, more keep coming, so it stays looking fresh. The leaves are kind of delicate and ferny, which adds a nice texture without looking too wild. It doesn't take up a ton of space either, so it's easy to fit into small rooms or even on a windowsill. It's not a diva, just a laid-back bloomer that brings some happy vibes without any drama. Coral bells are kinda like the underdog of indoor flowering plants. They're known more for their foliage, but man, those tiny bell-shaped flowers are pretty underrated. I've got a pot of them in my hallway where the light's not super strong, and they still manage to thrive. The leaves come in all these wild colors: burgundy, lime green, even almost black so. Even when it's not blooming, it still looks cool. When it does flower, these thin little stems shoot up with soft, dangly blooms that just add this subtle charm. It's not trying to be the flashiest plant in the room, but it brings this mellow elegance. I don't mess with it too much, just water it when the soil dries out a bit and trim the stems after the flowers fade. It holds up well indoors and doesn't throw a fit if the conditions aren't perfect. Honestly, if you want a plant that gives you color, texture, and a little bloom without needing to babysit it, coral bells are where it's at. Weigela is one of those plants you don't usually think of as an indoor option, but hear me out, it totally works if you've got a decent-sized pot and a bright corner to spare. I've got one of the dwarf varieties near my patio door, and it's been throwing out these gorgeous little trumpet-shaped flowers in pink and red like it's showing off. The blooms come in waves, and the foliage has got this deep green vibe that makes everything around it pop. It doesn't need direct sun blasting it all day, just some good bright light, and it settles in pretty nice. I water it when the top inch of soil feels dry and give it a little pruning after it blooms to keep it tidy. It's definitely more of a statement plant, not huge, but just enough to make people go, "Wait, you're growing that inside?" Plus, it brings in this little garden feel, like a piece of the outdoors tucked into your living room. Definitely worth a shot if you want something a little unexpected but still easy to manage. All right, that wraps up our list of the top 12 indoor flowering plants for low light. Hope you found a few new favorites to brighten up your space. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know which plant you're adding to your home. Catch you in the next one.